Hello, Royalers. Welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. I am so grateful for you joining me today. Today's lecture is going to be extremely interesting. Of course, I'm Lady Trinette Wilson. I'm your lecturer and social historian. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me for today's lecture. And I think you're going to find it extremely interesting. The comment section has been on fire. Keep it going. I love talking to you all. Thanks for even taking time to leave a comment, for your encouragement, for your suggestions of new shows, and for asking for ways to support the show. Thank you so much. If you'd like to sponsor, I've left my Cash App and my Zelle down below. Thank you for helping me tell these amazing stories. And today's story is very amazing. Because although this woman became a great artist and is very well known in the art community and is even on the stamp, a lot of her history has been hidden in Black history. And I found her so interesting. I think you will too. Her name is Mary Edmonia Lewis, and she was known as the Wildfire of Sculptor. She was born in upstate New York on July 4th, 1844. She was born free because she was mixed race. Her mother was Native and American and Black. Now, there's some question as to who her father was. In fact, it was a little gossip, actually. Allegedly, her father's name was Samuel Lewis. However, Samuel's brother, well, he was his half brother. His name was Robert Benjamin Lewis. There was some question as to if he was the father or not. Well, nevertheless, her mother, Catherine, kept it moving. Her and Samuel were together, and so that's who raised her until she was 9 years old. And sadly, by the time she was nine, her parents were no longer with us. Now, her mother, while she was alive, taught Edmonia how to work with her hands. So Edmonia was very crafty from a very young girl, very artistic. She could draw, and so her mother taught her how to weave and how to be a craftsman. And here's one of the pictures that she drew. So she was very, very artistic. And so when she moved, she had to move to Niagara Falls, New York with her maternal aunts after her parents passed. And while there, she learned a lot more about how to do basket work. And actually, her aunts, they sold baskets, moccasins, and embroidered blouses to the tourists who were visiting there. Now, she would tell a story that this is when she would run through the woods and the forest, and that's why they called her Wildfire, because she was just a wild girl. I would think, too, it was a time of great freedom, and her parents, especially her mom, passed away early. So there probably was a sense of her trying to find herself. And Niagara Falls was a great place to do it because shortly after moving there, Samuel, her older brother, moved away. He moved to San Francisco. Now, his whole purpose for going there was to try to strike gold. You see, the big gold rush was on then. And can you believe it? He struck gold. Yes, he did. He struck gold and he took care of Edmonia for the rest of her life. In 1856, he sent her to a pre college program at the New York Central College. Then, when she was 15 in 1859, he sent her to Oberlin College in Ohio for a 3 year college prep program. And when she completed that, she went to Oberlin Collegiate Institute. Now, this is when she stopped being called Wildfire and got real serious about her studies in art. But while she was there, she also experienced a great deal of racism because out of the 1,000 students that were there, only 30 of them were Black, and they were subjected to racism, according to Edmonia, daily. Now, because of this mistreatment, this is why the next incident was really bad for Edmonia. You see, she lived with Reverend John Kemp and his family. That, when they lived in different places, they would live with a host family. So that's what he was. Well, two other girls lived there also. These girls were white girls. Well, everybody got along. He was an abolitionist. They were all living together. And the girls were going to go snowboarding. But before they went snowboarding, they want to have a little drink because they was gonna meet some guys down there, and so they drunk some wine. Edmonia didn't drink any wine, but the two girls grew ill immediately after drinking it. They took real ill. They had to be rushed to the hospital, and people thought Edmonia poisoned the girls. Edmonia said, I didn't do anything. One night on her way home, they even kidnapped Edmonia and beat the living daylights out of her. They left her there for unalive. Now, while she was recovering, wasn't even recovered, the police came and arrested her and charged her with poisoning the girls. Oh my goodness. This school was turning out not to be the place that Ammonia should have been. Thank goodness she had a great lawyer. Her brother had plenty money to be able to hire her a lawyer. His name was John Mercer Langston. He actually was the first black lawyer in Ohio. And they had to dismiss the case because they didn't even test the contents of the girl's stomachs to even know if they were poisoned. So that was dismissed, and she was trying to get out of Oberlin as fast as possible. She stayed one more year, which they accused her again of trying to steal, this time trying to steal another artist's materials. They didn't have any evidence on her, so she was found innocent once again. It was time for her to go. Even after she was gone, they still kept accusing her of things. So she never graduated from Oberlin. In 2022, however, Oberlin awarded her a degree posthumously. So she moved to Boston, and that's where she began to really master her gift. She was sat under the tutelage of Edward Augustus Brackett, but according to one of her clients and a friend, she said they fell out, so she wasn't able to continue with her training with him. And that same year, she opened up her own studio and sold her first piece of sculpture for $8. And that's when it began. She began her sculpting. She really used the abolitionists as her inspiration, she said, and people like John Brown, Robert Gould Shaw, who was the captain of the African American Civil War Regiment, and he liked it so much that he bought it. Well, what she did is she recreated it. She recreated 100 of them, and she sold them for $15 a piece. She was a very industrious young lady. She moved to Rome in 1866, but before she left, she had really imprinted her name in the art world and in the abolitionist society as well, because that's usually where she got her inspiration. And when she went to Rome, she was given some space, a work studio by Hiram Powers. She also did have some benefactors as well who also paid to help her live there in Rome. But because of it being more free, it wasn't as racist as America was. So she was able to make her own money and take care of her own self. She felt really good about that. And look at her work. I mean, just absolutely beautiful work. Now, she was known as a classical sculptor, but she also started getting a little bit avant garde. So she had some avant garde as well. Now, this is one of her most famous one called Forever Free. I just love, look at this, you all. Isn't this wonderful? It was said in 1873 in a article in the New Orleans Picayune, it stated that her work, two of them, had sold for $50,000 commission in 1873, you all. That's a long time ago. And I can't believe she's been hidden for this long. One of her most prestigious honors was in 1877. Ulysses S. Grant commissioned her to do a bust of him. And he loved it. I mean, look at this immaculate work that this beautiful woman who has been lost to our history, but now rediscovered today because you're listening to Royal Black and Elite, and you're liking and you're sharing and you're subscribing, and you're going to become a sponsor. I mean, tears are flowing. I am so excited about the people who are going to sponsor this great hidden history that I bring to you several times throughout the week. And I'm just so honored that you all listen and share. So let's get to the end of her illustrious career. In the late 1800s, neoclassicism began to decline, and so did her business. So she moved to Paris, and she lived there from 1896 to 1901. In 1901, she moved to London, and that's where she would pass away on September the 17th, 1907. It was due to kidney failure. It was a disease called Bright's disease. And she is buried at the St. Mary's Catholic Cemetery in London. Edmonia never married or had children, and she never returned to live in America. She found her home and her wealth there. Wasn't there something they threw this poor little thing in jail? And you think she really did poison those people? Or tried to steal? She may have been having some problems from her parents being no longer with her. Whatever the case may be, though, she did leave quite the legacy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. As always, it's for entertainment and educational purposes only. And my sources were Wikipedia, Smithsonian Magazine, and the Britannica. Thank you for joining me for another great episode of Royal Black and Elite.